Okay, preparing live streaming. I just trust that it's going to work. And it's loading. So everyone put in the chat where you're coming from while I do all this fun tech stuff. I just trust that it's going to work. Okay, turn that down. All right, I'm super excited. Hello, everyone. This is Lindsay, the Tiny Home Lady, and this is the Go Tiny Pro Show, formerly known as Thea Thursday and the Go Tiny Academy Meetup Live. We're just pulling it all together into one amazing place so that we can hear from leaders who are innovating this industry. And I'm so excited to hear from Terry Lantrip today. But before we get going over to Terry, everyone put in the chat, you know, where are you coming from? What's your number one reason that you just love about tiny homes? You might be living in one, you might be developing community. I know tonight's going to be a big topic of developing, and let us hear from the chat what's happening, where are people coming from, and why tiny homes are so excited. It could be a word, doesn't have to be a book. I love it. Lizette says, independence from Los Angeles. Yes, we found that LA needs a lot of builders and support given how many people live there. Anyone else want to share? All right, we're gonna mute that. Okay, so affordable living from Lakisha. Yes, I know Lakisha is doing some development work up in Northern California. So this is very timely to talk about it. I know Andy's developing his own land there in Sonoma County, Forestville, someplace small and dry. Nino and Victoria up there in Minnesota, supportive housing. They're doing some really great projects there. You've got a whole crew there too. You want to give a little scan of the crowd there behind you? I mean, we got like Minnesota in the house, right? Oh, sorry, Montana, excuse me, the other M state, my apologies. They've got a crew there that they've been doing some really fun game nights and way to bring together community around this awesome supportive housing focus. So that's great. So Terry, hopefully that helps give you an idea a little bit more of who's in the house.
Sure.
We also have the Go Tiny TV channel, YouTube channel, where this is going to be streaming live. However, the live Q&A will happen inside the Zoom. So for anyone that's like, wait, I want to ask my question of this amazing group, I'm just going to give you the link to join the Go Tiny Academy right here. That also gives you a free Tiny Home Industry Association membership. Terry and I are both members. Anyone else here members of Thea? Well, everyone's a member. That's part of my Go Tiny Academy. And anyone that wants to be on the live to ask questions of Terry here. Terry, are you the kind of person that wants to answer questions during your presentation or
during presentation?
Great,
yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so for anyone that's interested, you sign up for that. The lowest price package is $47. You get a free membership with Thea, $25 a year. So you're really getting an amazing deal for all the education that's in here. Lizette's shaking her head because they all know there's a lot in it. So if you want to get on and have access, that would be great. Can you guys hear anything? Because I'm at an airport. Is it good? Because I've learned Zoom actually really quiets things, even though we can hear them. Don't mind the people walking behind. They're just all really interested in tiny homes. They're ready. Okay, so without further ado, I am very excited when I was thinking about how can I blend the world of what I've been doing for 3 years with Thea Thursday and the Go Tiny Academy. I realized, you know, when you split yourself and you do too many things and it all just kind of falls apart. So the Go Tiny Pro Show was my answer to connecting the two worlds. And what a way to really still leverage the same thing. Commercial members in Thea, people leading and charging the industry, innovating like they do. And literally the biggest community here in the Academy of people that show up consistently are those that are up to big things like developments, you know, really looking larger than just their own tiny home. While many of them are definitely focusing on tiny home for themselves, they're also going to go bigger. Okay, so at least now you have a little bit better idea, Terry. have you been asked a lot about this topic? How'd you do it, Terry?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. About once a week, for sure.
So Terry and I connected, gosh, was that 2 years ago? In the Tiny Home Industry Association, we did these series. And this was the How to Buy Land Without Buying Land, or Community Development Series. And
Right.
Terry brought in his whole case study. Well, I'm sure there's some things since 2 years ago that you've probably learned. And so I said, Terry, could you just put together like Terry's top 10 tips for how to develop a community? He's like, no problem. So that is what we're going to focus on tonight. And I'm going to turn this over to you, Terry. I'm going to mute myself, and anyone that comes in, I'll be muting them. If things get a little weird with mics, I'll be right on it. So thank you so much for being here, everyone. Applause, whatever you do in the chat, all that weird, awkward Zoom, like we're all on a big giant. All right, take it away, Terry. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. So Lindsay said that I should come up with a Terry's top 10. So I'm going to go over those items. And it's from my perspective, we built the Lake Dallas Tiny Home Village. We opened it in 2018. There really wasn't a lot of other villages or a lot of people doing what we were doing. So we had to come up with a lot of what we were doing on the fly. And I think we did probably more right things than we did wrong things. So we came out okay. So my first thing is research. And a lot of people that are wanting to do tiny home villages or just go tiny or whatever, they just want me to tell them everything. But the information is out there. Now, when we first started, there wasn't a lot of information, but now there's quite a bit of information. And what I tell people, whether they're going to go tiny or if they're going to do a tiny home village, go out and do the research. It's there. I just listed a couple of things here. Tiny House Expedition. I watch every one of the videos. And they also have something called Living Tiny Legally. So if you're going to do a village, you really need to watch Living Tiny Legally. It's a 2-part documentary. I think it's about an hour and a half or so for each one. And this tells the story of the early days of people trying to get a tiny home village approved, some in the city, some outside of the city. And it was rough. A lot of resistance, and it's still happening today, but these were the pioneers in trying to get something going. And I think in most cases, the people that were involved in trying to do things, they didn't make it. It just didn't happen. But the work that they did led up to the Appendix Q being approved. And I won't go into that a lot, but that was a big deal. And a lot of people had a lot of credit for making that happen. Because whenever we were trying to figure out how to do the Lake Dallas Tiny Home Village, there wasn't a roadmap. We didn't even know what we were doing. We were talking with the city, and the city's like, well, we have to have rules. And cities, that's what they live on. They live on rules. Well, we didn't have any. There wasn't anything. There wasn't a starting point. And then somewhere in doing that, we found out about the Appendix Q, and we're able to connect with people who knew a lot more about it than we did. And that was the thing that allowed us to do the Lake Dallas Tiny Home Village, because it was the rules that we needed to make it happen. So there's also the Tiny House Lifestyle podcast. Ethan does a really, really good job. And I listen to everyone. I think you have to learn. I learn from every source that I can come up with on these things. Tiny House Giant Journey, Lindsay's Go Tiny TV. We have a resource page on our website, and we have a lot of information. I'm always eager to add more information if anybody has anything that they they feel would be a good match for what we're trying to do. So I say go out and just find out everything you can. Our journey to build the Lake Dallas Tiny Home Village was not without some issues. We had support from the majority of the city council, but we also had a lot of pushback from the city, in part because they didn't understand what we were doing, and they were very reticent about us moving forward. So they didn't want to make any mistakes. I finally said, we just got to do it. Let's just do it. If we make mistakes, we're going to make mistakes. We'll fix them and we'll move on. The second part of the top 10 is kind of two-part. It's one, reach out. The Tiny House Industry Association has a lot of resources. This is one of them, what we're doing tonight. Local enthusiasts and groups in Dallas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we were lucky because we had a lot of support from that group, and that group was very active. So when the city council put us through all of these hearings and they wanted to know exactly what we're doing, there was a large group of people that showed up at those meetings. And what happened is the city council, who was reticent because, I mean, they didn't really know what tiny homes were. And they were concerned that this would be a trashy trailer house park of some sort. But what they were able to see through the people that showed up was an enthusiastic group of smart people and fun people. And a lot of them got up and spoke on our behalf. And that was important. So definitely reach out to the local groups if you have one. So also in number 2, participate there. If there's a local group or if there's not a local group, then start one. It doesn't have to be very formal. Just get out and try to get the people in your area together to work on this project. And I know in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we have open houses at some of the tiny home builders. If you have a builder in your area, work with them and have them put on an open house to allow people to see inside a tiny home. You know, we get a lot of, we give a lot of tours at the Lake Dallas Tiny Home Village. And the one thing that I can't do is we can't go in the homes. And that's a bummer, but our homes, the homes that are in the Tiny Home Village here are individually owned. And after about 5 or 6 tours, the residents were like, yeah, thanks, but we're going to pass on this time. But a lot of people, they've never been inside a tiny home, and they think it's really cool, but until you actually walk into a tiny home and stand around and look, you just don't get the impact of a tiny home. Tiny home events. I know that some states will have meetings and things like that. And we used to have one here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and it was awesome. I got to meet a lot of people, but I don't think we're having any right now. So anyway, if go to another state, find out where they are, and go to them, because you're going to learn a lot. So if you're going to do a tiny home village, the biggest thing you need to do is to make a plan. And you have to see what other people have done. And you can do that through some of the videos, Tiny House Expedition. We've been on a lot of videos showing off our village. And I know there's other villages that I've seen as well on YouTube is my friend. So definitely see what other people are doing, and you'll learn a lot.
Terry, is that number 3, the make a plan?
Yes, number 3 is make a plan.
I'm tracking you in the chat just to keep it.
Okay.
It's
Awesome.
for me as notes too. Thanks.
Awesome. yeah, you make a plan, do a lot of drawing. If find out exactly how you want to lay out your community. Our community is right in the downtown heart of downtown Lake Dallas. So ours is going to be a little different than one that's, say, outside of the city limits or out in the country. Our village is on 1 acre. We have 13 homes, and then we have the original farmhouse because it was originally a farm. And so our homes are very close together because it is an urban village. But what we did is we really worked to maximize the amount of open space. So in our village, we have a courtyard that is in between the homes. And then we also have another open area as well. So you really want to plan. And what I say in this, whether it's a tiny home village or if you're going to build a building, commercial, residential, make the plan, put it aside, and go back after a while and look at it and make it even better, because you can always find things that you need to make better.
I have a quick question on this, Terry.
Sure.
So do you think doing like 3D drawing, line drawing, I know there's some expense in that, but did that, to really show the vision for people? I mean, they're sort of writing on paper and then taking that paper, even if you don't know how to do it, to someone else that can put it into a graphical 3D image.
Yes, I firmly believe when we were doing this, because we were in the early stages, we did have someone that drew out a plan, our plan with color, and we had one of our volunteers, Luis Gonzalez. He did a rendering showing the farmhouse with tiny homes in the background, so people could actually see. He also did one where if you were driving by and looking at our village, you could see what it looks like, and it really does pay off. In fact, I'm working on another project where I'm taking an old building, and it's a tough sell, but I was able to send him the pictures of the building with a sketch that I made, and he did a wonderful job of bringing it to life exactly the way I wanted it. And I was able to take it to the people that I needed to take it to, and they were blown away. So, I was competing with other entities on that, and I think we're going to end up with that building based on that. So you really have to have some visuals. You have to have a good plan, and it has to be where you can actually look at it. Your layout and everything has to be spot on. The fourth item I have on the list, and that is run the numbers. So I've talked to a lot of people, and they have great ideas, but they don't really realize this stuff costs a lot of money. So you have to keep that into consideration. If you're out in the country, you might be able just to run a few sewer line and have one system and run some water lines. But typically, you're going to need to do a lot more than that. In the most counties, even if you're in the county, they're going to require a septic system of some sort that's going to have to be pretty intricate, and they're going to want to see an engineered study to show. So you have to run the numbers. You also have to know how much you're going to make off of it and how much your land costs. And a lot of times the numbers just do not pencil out. And the worst thing you can do is to come up with a plan and go forward, and it doesn't make any money, or it doesn't make enough to justify doing it. And in that case, you need to walk away and wait until the right situation comes up. And I don't know about land prices anywhere else, but in Texas, they're crazy right now. So, and I can only imagine California and some of the other places, it's even worse. So you have to know if it's going to be working for you. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of banks are really reticent about doing tiny home villages, and I don't blame them. One, they don't they don't know tiny homes, and they don't know that they're so popular. As far as the tiny home village goes, I was able to find a banker who just happened to like me and like the buildings and the projects that I had done so far. So I did have a track record. Um, so they weren't too concerned, but they did consider the Lake Dallas Tiny Home Village to be an experimental project. And I did have the wherewithal to bail it out if need be. But I did have to go through a lot of hoops to get that to happen because uh, no one had ever done one quite the way we've done ours. So definitely run the numbers. Number 5, location. So as far as like, luckily I had the property in Lake Dallas. I had it almost 17 years just sitting on it, not sure what to do with it. It was actually zoned office warehouse, but I didn't really want to do office warehouse. And one thing, when I bought the property from the granddaughter of the original farmers that owned the property, and the only request was don't tear the house down and don't take the trees out. And weren't that many trees, but that did limit what we were doing. And at one point, I tried to sell the property because I just didn't know what to do with it. And everyone was planning to take out the house and take out the trees, and that didn't work. So luckily, we came up with the Lake Dallas Tiny Home Village. We only had to take out one tree, and the farmhouse is still there. But location is really important. If you're going to go into inside of city limits, be prepared. It's going to be a lot more expensive. If you do one outside of the city limits, it's going to probably be less expensive. But sometimes people really like the idea of not having to drive too far. I know that there are several tiny home villages in the North Texas area that are too far from the Metroplex, too far from people's work. They don't want to drive that far. And some of the tiny home villages have struggled because of that. And I hate that, but we're inside the city limits. It costs more money for the land. If I were to buy it at today's market rate, it was a lot more expensive because we had to do a lot more engineering, a lot more running through hoops and everything. But it really has paid off because it is close to people's work. If you get too far out, it's going to be tough. And some of the tiny home villages that are further out that wanted to be a complete just tiny home village, they are now tiny homes and RVs. And that's okay. That's okay. I'm a purist. I think that tiny homes need to be with tiny homes and RVs need to be with RVs. But I'm not judging or anything. I just think that tiny home people are so interesting, so cool, so amazing. And I don't think you get quite that caliber when you have an RV park. Those people typically tend to stay to themselves a little bit more, and it's different clientele. And I know that the people in our village really appreciate the fact that they're all on one accord. They all come from the same ideology as far as the way they want to live. So location is very important, and I'm not saying that one further out, way far, is a bad idea. You just have to make sure you're going to get enough people to make it worth your while. So number 6, you're going to have to deal with the government, no matter what. If you do a tiny home village inside a city, you're going to have to run through a lot of hoops. It's just really, really tough. And rare occasion they're going to actually make it easy or make it logical. Most of the time they're going to try to figure out how to trip you up, or they're so concerned about every minute detail that they lose complete focus on what the project is. For the tiny home, our Lake Dallas tiny home village, they held us up 8 months on just one little technicality. And we just were at a standoff. And I said, you know, if you guys are going to be like that, and it was actually their mistake, but we just had to wait until they decided to play nicely. And it was really making them look very, very bad because they just weren't using logic. So if you're doing a village outside of a city in the county, you're going to need to deal with the county. A lot of the places they're really concerned about your sewer system, your septic tanks and things like that. And that makes sense. I know in Texas, you can't even run your gray water out. And that to me kind of doesn't make sense, but it is what it is. But you're going to have to deal with the county. And I always say, go ahead and make sure you've got everything ready to go before you even purchase a property. You need to make sure that you're going to be able to do what you want to do. I know someone who had a great idea that was going to do a tiny home village, very gung-ho, did their research, and I was helping them along, and they came to me and said, hey, we bought a property, and they were so ecstatic. And I was like, did you make sure you checked all the boxes? They didn't do it. So I don't even know what happened. And that was sad because that was a group of people that I think would have made a really nice tiny home village. But
Is this one in Colorado, Terry?
no.
Okay.
No.
What about Kansas? No, was it the couple on YouTube?
I don't want to say.
Okay.
I don't want to say.
Well, just to interject for a second, there was a couple on YouTube that they were very vocal about it. They purchased land, didn't check off all the boxes, and lost $30,000. They promoted it. We put it in the show that I wanted to, we shared with everyone, because it was just one of those CCNRs, check with your neighbors. It didn't work, and they ended up purchasing the land before they secured it versus not purchasing it. And everyone, just so you know, Dan Fitzpatrick does an entire lesson on how to buy land without buying land. So you all have access to it in the Go Tiny Academy and on Thea. And if you're here watching the replay and you don't have either of them, you got to get into the club, because that information's there. You don't want to lose the money that they lost. Yeah. Or that you know about.
And as enthusiastic as we are about tiny homes, there are people that are completely the opposite. They do not want tiny homes anywhere near them. They don't want them at all. They would rather there not be any tiny homes anywhere. So you just have to make sure that your neighbors are going to be okay with it. Luckily, in where we are in Lake Dallas, I own some houses on one side, and on the other side were the the warehouses and things like that. So we didn't get any pushback. So we were, and you know, some of these cities, and I've talked to cities before, and I said, you know, you probably got some property in your city that's being underutilized that would be perfect for a tiny home village, because that will clean up an area. So it hasn't happened yet, but I'm hoping. Number 7, whatever you do, you got to make it pretty. And that's so simple. You really have to think out what it's going to look like. So when we were doing the tiny home village in Lake Dallas, one of the more important things was, what's going to happen when somebody drives down the street? Because this is right inside the downtown. What's going to happen when they see it? So you definitely want to have something that they can see. And for our village, and you can go on our website and see, the main thing you'll see is a courtyard that has grass, and then the homes are on the left side and the right side. And what you don't know is that grass is actually a fire lane. We were required, the first thing that I do in Lake Dallas is I go to the fire marshal, tell me what I need to know, because that's the starting point. Because if they don't like it, it ain't happening. Nobody messes with the fire department. So whenever I went to the fire department, they said, okay, so you're going to have a fire lane. It's going to have to be 25 feet wide. And I think ours is about 100 feet long. So we were looking at a slab of concrete that would support the fire trucks. Now, one, it's not, no way is a slab of concrete going to look good. And eventually it's going to crack. It's going to be hot. And I was like, this is not going to work. So the fire marshal at the time was somebody that I knew for a long time. He goes, well, just use grasscrete. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've heard of that before. So what grasscrete is, it's basically a slab of concrete, but it also has holes in it so that you can either put rocks in it, or you can put in grass, and we put in grass. So right now we have a really nice crop of ryegrass because that's what works here in the wintertime. And then in the summertime, we have Bermuda. And it's a living and breathing entity because we have to maintain it, we have to water it, and reseed as necessary. But it really makes for a beautiful visual from the street. And also, our tiny home folks, they don't wear shoes. So this allows them to be able to walk around without their feet getting scalded. And the kids can play in it. They can ride their bicycles. They can get the water hose and play in the water, and it feeds the grass. So that works out really, really well. It's really important to have something nice to look at. We have white picket fence. We have planting areas. And so it's just really nice to have something pretty to look at. And I tell people that with any kind of development that you're going to do, the prettier you make it, the better off you're going to be. So let's see, number 8. Now, this isn't not everybody's going to be able to do this, but the first thing that the people talk to, when I first started the Lake Dallas Tiny Home Village in the talking stages, I met with the local tiny home people. And one of the first things they said was, get the cars out of the way. So not everybody's going to be able to do that, but we were able to do that. So we have our courtyard, we have our homes on both sides of the courtyard, and then the cars are actually behind there. And we don't have assigned parking or anything, but we just wanted the cars further out. Yes, there's Lizette's bringing. Well, actually, that's not exactly the view. That's the side view that Lizette's bringing. So the view from the street, our cars are secluded from really public view. And also we've got children, we've got little kids, and we don't want anything to happen to those kids. So the kids have the run of the place, which is really cool. And we don't have to worry. They know not to go in the parking areas. So they can run around all the houses in the courtyard, the backyard, and the parents don't have to worry about that. It does create problems because you have to park and you have to bring your groceries in, but I haven't really had that many complaints because it does make for a more beautiful community. Number 9, you have to have amenities. And I've had some arguments with people who are wanting to do tiny home villages because they just don't want to do the amenities. And I'm like, you have to have it. This is not a piece of land and a parking spot, and that's it. You have to have the amenities. So simple amenities. We have a fire pit. All it is just a few pieces of concrete. We do have some really cool chairs around our fire pit, and to be honest, those are they're just red, white, and blue. I picked them up 2 for $25 at a Walmart clearance, but they have been iconic, and it's gotten a lot of kudos because they're just pretty. Yeah, there they are. The fire pit gets used a lot, especially this time of year when it's cold. And it's interesting. You can see this picture was taken probably about this time of year, and probably no, this is more of the summer. The chairs go further out in the summer, and when it gets colder, the chairs they move in a little bit more. So anyway, I think that's fun. We have all kinds of wood that we are taking down trees, or if trees fall, we make sure there's a lot of firewood for them to use. You have to have gathering spots. This is one of the gathering spots. We also have another gathering spot where that's it. Just places for people to hang out, and people do like to just plop down wherever, and they just like to sit and visit. Our people are great about visiting with each other. Picnic tables, it's not an big expense. You just got to have that. Now, this picture right here is really interesting because we actually have 3 picnic tables. I'm not sure where the other one is, but during COVID, when people were having to work from home, we had 3 people. Each one had a picnic table, and that was their office. So they had all their paperwork spread out and their computer and everything. It was awesome. I wanted to take a picture, but I also wanted to respect their privacy. But I thought that is so freaking cool. Community garden, that's not hard to come by. Our community garden is basically just some space on the property that we were able to put together. And our garden shed is actually the old outhouse that went with the property. And so we were able to recreate it. It had fallen over, it was in disrepair. We rebuilt it, and now it's our garden shed. If you have room, a dog park is always a hit. We actually don't have the room for a dog park. But now, the other thing is a washateria. And this is where I get crossways with some people because it's an expense. So our washateria costs $40,000. That's a lot of money, but it's really important because some of our tiny home residents have washers and dryers. Some of them have that all-in-one unit that they're not really fond of. So we have 4 washers, 4 dryers. That's more than enough. And also it allows people to do 2 loads of laundry at one time. I would love to have 2 washers and 2 dryers to do my laundry so that it doesn't take so long. But it's a really important amenity. And if you're going to do a tiny home village, you're going to have to do, well, you're not going to have to, you really need to do that as a courtesy to your residents. And if you don't have very many tiny homes, you don't have to do 4. And you don't have to do one as fancy as ours, but I just felt it was important. Our washateria building, it also has a table and chairs and an old church pew so people can hang out there. And it's good for the kids. They have a clubhouse there at times. And then also we have residents who will use the table. They may need to get out of the house, out of their tiny home, and do their work from home, utilizing that space. So washateria is really important. The last item on the agenda here is you really have to promote what you do. And we promoted right from the start. Now, I do have a background in media and newspapers, websites, and things like that. So it wasn't difficult for me, but it also really shouldn't be difficult for most people. And if you're not really familiar with things like that, just grab somebody and they'll be glad to help you out. So we started early on with our Facebook page, posting every step of the way. And some of it wasn't real pretty because we were having trouble with the city, but everyone shared in our victories and everybody was rooting for us. And it's really important to have that. I try to post things on Facebook at least every few days. I try not to post too many things on any one certain day. I try to space it out. Even if it's pictures of flowers that are blooming, that's what we do. We post about our tours and just whatever's happening, whatever we're getting. If we get new chairs or just anything, it just lets people know that we are an active community. Now, we don't have Instagram, and that's one thing that I'm going to hopefully work on. I'm not really a techno person, but we've got to get that because I know that's really important. We have a website, and our website's really important because there's no way we can answer everyone's individual questions. So all of our information is on the website. And if someone sends me an email and says, hey, tell me about your community, or we want to know more, I'm like, go to the website. If you see something if you have a question that's not answered there, please let me know. So a website's really important. We have a lot of pictures on our website from day one. And so that's really important. And we use GoDaddy, which is just one of the many companies that deal with that. Doing a website with them was very, very easy. They already had templates, and just about anybody can put together a website and then make it look really, really good. That's my top 10.
Oh my goodness, Terry, thank you so much. This was so great. Wow. How about everyone? Thumbs up. Okay, so we are going to flow. We got a few more minutes, about 15 minutes. Is this, you still have time to answer some questions? I know we've got a lot of people in here that mostly everyone I see, they're in here live, are passionate about developing, have been in development projects or actively looking at developing their community. So who would like to go forward and just ask your question? You can unmute yourself, got a small group, so I trust you all. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, Terry. Thank you for presenting. That was awesome. I'm Lakisha, and I am very interested in your model. And when you said, get your people. So I have a couple different communities that I'm working on. It's kind of different. I'm wired differently. So the first project I have is with the church, and we're looking for tiny homes for homeless people. But I have a project as well where I'm looking to have tiny homes placed on property that I have. And I'm interested when you said get your people. So finding individuals, they purchased their homes, you bought the property and then did like a lease option, or what was the structure, or how did you set that up?
So we have 13 lots, and people come in and they rent the lots. So the lot rent pays for water, sewer, trash, use of the washateria. We don't have coin operated. And then they have use of the property as far as community garden and things like that. So they just rent the space.
And then for the unit itself?
They have to meet our requirements. They have to be, the homes have to meet the Appendix Q. They have to be either NOAA certified or something of that nature. Or if they if they have a home that's not been inspected, we have to have a Texas certified inspector go in and make sure the house meets the requirements, mostly of the city, so that they know it's a safe, it has the egress and all that kind of thing, the fire egress and such. So
So, I mean, you don't provide the tiny homes. They actually own their
They-
own tiny
they-
home, bring it and
yes.
put it on. Okay, so that's where it's kind of different for me. My idea was to actually purchase them and do like a lease option and still do the lot rent for sure. So it is kind of a different model, but that's interesting.
I don't think your idea is not a bad idea. There are people that need help getting the financing worked out. So helping people to bridge that gap is a good idea as well. With only 13 lots, we didn't have to worry. We already had enough response that I didn't really have to worry about that. So I help promote a couple of builders. I don't get anything from it. I just help them because I know that they are good builders. And if someone's looking for a tiny home, that's who I send them to.
And then they can get their home built and certified and all of that. And then they're able, or they do work out their own financing. And that's another option. I hadn't thought about that. So I'm kind of playing with a lot of different things. So that may even be a better option as opposed to me trying to fund it, finance it, and then do like a wraparound type of situation.
It's very expensive to buy tiny homes right now. So we wouldn't have been able to buy any tiny homes. I can tell you that. Our budget was as much, in fact, the bank shorted me on the budget because they said, this is as much as we can do because it is an experimental project. So I had to try to find other funding and I was able to pull it off. But yeah, to try to go in and budget in actually having tiny homes on the property, that's not cost effective for most people. So I wouldn't recommend trying to put tiny homes there. Now you could work with a builder or builders to just facilitate. Go to this builder, they can help you with the financing, they can build your home. And that's basically what I did. I just facilitated getting them moving towards that. And a lot of people did go that route.
That I'm so glad. I mean, because it's new to me, right? And I just bought some property in Alabama this past weekend for student housing. And well, that's my goal. That's what I'm thinking for student housing and a tiny home community. But that's kind of back burner. I need to do California stuff first. But it was such a great price, so I couldn't pass it up. So worst case scenario, I'll put a house on it. Still would make money, but Well,
if you get away from having to try to figure out how to get the tiny homes built and how to get the financing for the residents, that's a lot of work. And there are already people building tiny homes, and that's their responsibility, in my opinion, to figure out how to get financing, to work with the financing company. And
I really appreciate, because I my thought is just working with people that can't afford a $300,000 house, but to take the pressure off of me and to put it on them. And then for your park rules, well, you don't call it a park, your community rules, they're allowed, do you have them on a lease, like a certain term?
A 1-year lease. We're only allowed to do up to 1 year. The city of Lake Dallas was really concerned about a home sitting there forever and ever and ever and being run down. So they said you can do up to 1-year leases, but you can do 1 year and then another year and another year and another year. That way they felt comfortable that if a home becomes in disrepair, we just don't renew their lease, and then that home has to go away. they didn't really know the type of people that we were dealing with. And in our village, if somebody needs something, everybody pitches in and helps out. So no one's home is going to go into disrepair.
Okay. So how do you really make a considerable amount of revenue if it's just the park fee? Or is that not, was that not the,
Well, our rents are 600 to 650 a month, depending on which size lot. We have two different size lots. To be honest, the RV parks around us are in the 700 to 750 range, maybe even up to 800. So we're considerably less.
okay.
And I tell people, if you're wanting to make a lot of money, this is probably not the thing that you need to be doing. But you can make the numbers work in most cases. I couldn't make a living just on the Lake Dallas Tiny Home Village. I have actually a total of 34 rental units in one area, and that makes enough that I can make a living off of it, work full time doing that kind of work. But it costs a lot of money to do a tiny home village, and so there's a profit to be made. It's just not a huge profit.
Okay.
Is it
Thank
the
you.
long play, Terry? Like, oh,
Is
is this the long play? You've developed, you got a lot of money invested in, the green crete and the tables
Right.
and the picnic and the washateria and all that adds up in the front end. But then over what, 10, 15, 20 year,
Our loan is on a 15-year note. And so in 15 years, it will be paid off. One good thing about what we did is I bought the property 17 years ago when the prices of property were just minuscule. To be really honest, if I were to have to go, even in 2018, when we really launched this, if I had to buy the property at the 2018 prices, there probably wouldn't be a Lake Dallas Tiny Home Village. Luckily, oh gosh, some of my properties I bought over 30 years ago, and I still haven't developed. But I bought them at prices where I didn't, I struggled even at that time to be able to pay. But yeah, I couldn't be developing today if I had to buy things at today's rates.
wow.
Interesting.
Anyone else sort of, thank you, Lakisha. That was great. I know your reels are turning.
Yes, they're really turning that you helped me a ton. I mean, totally completely changed my thought process because I was going to talk to Andy because I had was just thinking like a lease option type thing and just trying to get it where people can like afford to live, and it's just kind of crazy. So that's really a great option.
And let's talk a little bit more about that. I just became a dealer. So when you work with me, you work with all builders all over the country. And that is something that is so key to be flexible. Where are these people coming from? Are they going to be living somewhere, maybe in the backyard and then now bringing it to them? Or are they going to actually locate on your land in Alabama? Or the one, you guys are doing a different project up in Cottonwood where you are making a short-term rental.
Oh,
in that-
that project.
That's different.
They're actually placing their tiny homes that they get in the spaces. So that's kind of different. Yeah. And they'll be generate revenue from their Airbnbs. Ours will have four cabins placed, and they don't necessarily have to be tiny homes because there were cabins there before. So we're not as restricted with the cabins that we'll put up there. So that's kind of a different model totally. But yeah.
I would like to say at this point, we have 13 lots and we are owner occupied only. We don't allow Airbnbs or anything like that. We don't have to because we do have enough people that are interested in being in our village. I don't have anything against Airbnbs. In fact, I'm kind of shooting for another project that would allow tiny homes with the Airbnb model. But our residents don't want short-term people in there. They want long-term, they want to know their neighbors. And we do have children. The children have the run of the place. The children know everybody. Everybody knows the children. Everybody kind of watches over the kids. And it would just change our whole dynamics if we were to have people coming in and out that nobody knew. So
Oh, yeah.
it's,
Yeah,
it's,
definitely.
it's not a
Yeah,
bad idea. It's just for us, we didn't want to go that route. We didn't need to, because with only 13 lots in a large metroplex, we didn't really have to do that.
You're not alone. Just to bring in a story from Tiny House Block was doing full-time people and Airbnb, and they've since stopped the Airbnb madness because it's small enough. It wasn't like big giant area. Like, for example, you might know Tiny House Village or Village Farm. They've got an area, and it's really a try before you buy sales office, like sales zone. That's very different than where all the other people live full time. So yeah, if there was like 2 or 3 people right next door to you and you're trying to make, it's too much interchange or over flipping. I just wrote the models in there. They're short term. Midterm is kind of a new world of like that nurse that's there for maybe a minimum of 90 days, so even if there is a turnover, it's not in that, kind of repetitive weekly, daily type of thing. And then of course, long term. So anyone else have any questions? Floor is yours for another few minutes. I want to respect Terry's time whenever you want to go, Terry.
Hey, Lindsay, it's Victoria. Terry, can you talk about a little bit more? I think it was either in the email or you said mentioned it about getting property. I can't remember how the concept went, but getting property ahead of time. And I know a couple of people have done it where they get the money ahead of time and then get the property afterwards, like those types of things.
You just need to make sure that whatever property you're going for will accommodate a tiny home village, because like the situation that I talked about, you don't want to get a property and then you're stuck with it. So, wherever you're at, if you're in a city, you're going to need to talk to the city people. If you're in the county, you're going to need to talk to the county people. Just be sure you know that what you want it in writing, because don't let anybody tell you something and then they go, oh, yeah, well, I never said that, or, well, I didn't know what you were asking. But yeah, just be sure that you can do what you want to do. And also you have to remember, you've got neighbors, and that could be a really big problem too, because even if the county says you can do it and you buy the property, your neighbors can terrorize you to the point where you don't want to do it. So you want to be sure that everything is going to work before you do the investment. And no bank's going to loan you money until they know exactly where the property is and how you're going to do it. And I think most investors are going to probably want the same thing. And investors are, they're very, very, the tiny home villages, again, that's just not something that they know much about.
How large are the lots? Your lots, Terry?
They're the smaller ones are 20-foot by 40-foot lots, and then the larger ones are 22.5 by, I don't even remember, 40 or 50. We can accommodate up to an 8.5 by 40-foot tiny home.
So with each, so do you have like a set space for each lot? Like, say, some units are larger and some units are smaller, but do you have a set space for each of the 13 lots?
Well, we have the smaller homes are on the smaller lots, and then we have some larger homes on the larger lots. So it just depends on what size that is available. So we have a small, one of our smallest homes just happens to be on one of our larger lots, but that was the only lot that was available when they came. So they were happy to get it. So you see
Okay.
these lots that are being shown right now, those homes are some of the larger homes that we have.
Okay.
They're on the larger lots.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, guys. I have to jump off. I have another call. I'm gonna look at the recording. Lindsay, guys, Terry, thank you so much. I learned so much, and I will be going on your site. It looks great. Looks
Thank
like
you.
you've done an awesome job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good night, guys.
Thank you, Lakisha. My favorite part about the website, Terry, is the story that the gentleman that wrote before he passed away. If
Yes,
he hadn't written all of that, that
we
would
would
have
have
gone
never
with
known.
him. And the fact that you
Priceless.
highlight it and focus on it, thank you so much for, just showing that human part of this is not just land that you just came along. It's been around for a long, long time, and the stewards that have been on it, right? And now it landed for you, and it's just an endearing story. So if anyone hasn't read it, now that I've mentioned it, I'll put the link in there. So
We
we
have-
are going to wrap up because we have the 1 hour of power. If you guys have liked this, give us the comments in the chat. Love to hear about it. This is the new format, the Go Tiny Pro Show. Love to get some feedback. If you like it, thumbs up. This is amazing. Share your takeaways in the chat so that other people can see it when they see the replay. I'm going to take all the comments, put it in on the YouTube live, and when we share this back out, other people can come on each other. What I'm really all about is creating more community. Just like what Terry said about people that live there, I really got, awakened to this community. It doesn't have to just be physical. It can be online. And we're doing that here in the Academy. I do it in the world of the Tiny Home Industry Association. We're going to have like 60 people descending on a networking event, which is on the Saturday night. I wish you could be there, Terry. Remember, when Tiny Fest happens next year, San Diego, the Saturday night of the event, all the industry people come together, and it's grown to like 60 people now. Now we've got the statewide coalition of Casita Coalition joining in on our event. So this is where the magic starts happening. The investors start meeting up, the builders, the industry association, and soon more elected officials, more zoning people, more of the people that we really need to get to make change happen. So thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your messages and your takeaways. If you think about them afterward, feel free to send them. Comment on each other's. That's where we build community more and more. And the more we do that, the more we support, so that people aren't like, what's a tiny home village? We really create an opportunity for people to really know what we're talking about, and saying that this is the new wave of what we used to call a trailer park, and now we call a beautiful, thriving community that we need more all over the world. So any words, Terry, that you have to share with this group? Did you enjoy it?
But yes, thank you. Thank you for everybody listening in. I've enjoyed it. And housing is a problem for people, and we have to be the ones to help solve it. And tiny homes are just one aspect, but it's one that we can actually do.
Thank you so much, Terry. I appreciate it. Put LakeDallasTinyHomeVillage.com in the chat. And for anyone that's watching the replay, thank you for going there. And when you open up your Instagram, so I would say definitely go get it, because we'll definitely guide people to it. You have your Facebook account? Is that right? We should probably put that in the chat. We'll
It's
put
Lake
that in the
Dallas.
comments below the YouTube. So when you get it, let me know. And so everyone can follow you and support what you're doing. And of course, this is just one of many more to come. Thank you, Terry. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. You'll have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.